From playing it safe in his first 2 seasons to potentially becoming the Texans' go-to wide receiver, Nico Collins might just be the fantasy sleeper pick you need to succeed. So, let's discuss the prospects for this young gun for the 2023 season.
From the pocket for the end zone, the catch. It's Nico Collins for a Texans touchdown.
So when Nico Collins was first drafted, he wasn't exactly a reliable pick. Sure, he had the size, standing at 6 foot 4 inches and weighing 215 pounds. Not to mention, he was known for his athleticism, but his college stats at Michigan didn't scream NFL superstar. Besides this, his rookie season wasn't a groundbreaker. I mean, among rookie wide receivers with over 50 targets, he ranked last in yards per route. But you can't ignore the fact that he was one of 9 rookies to even get those 50-plus targets in the first place. Clearly, he might not have delivered impressively with his chances, but he was given a decent performance. Honestly, the same goes for his efficiency. Like, he wasn't the most efficient receiver out there, but he was far from the worst. Seriously, just compare his performance with other players who were drafted even higher but struggled even more. For instance, take De'Ami Brown and Terrence Marshall. They had a tough time adjusting in their first NFL year. As for Collins, he showed some potential even though he didn't fully break out. Unfortunately, injuries got in the way, with a mid-season growing issue and a season-ending foot injury after Week 13. This put his long-time durability in question as well. So if you had picked him up for your fantasy team, it wouldn't have been the right decision. But don't worry, because the player totally turned things around in the 2022 season. In fact, he showed some serious breakout potential. He improved his game from 32 receiving yards per game as a rookie to 48 yards per game in his sophomore year.
Floats it, end zone, touchdown, Nico Collins.
Now that's some real dedication. What's more, his yards per route run also jumped up to 1.68, which is pretty good. Now, among the wide receivers from the 2021 class with over 50 targets, only a few were more efficient. I'm talking about Jalen Waddle, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Jamar Chase, and they were considered the top-tier picks in the fantasy drafts. Sure, these 4 were more efficient than Collins, but the thing is, you can draft Nico way later, around the 16th round, while others are going much earlier. So if you're looking for a potential fantasy steal, he might just be your guy in 2023. Now, when you're trying to figure out how good the Texans receivers have been lately, and all you got to work with are these fancy stats that measure their performance, it doesn't paint a good picture. But hold on, there's still some hope out there on the horizon. The Texans have scored big with a new quarterback in C.J. Stroud, and even though the Panthers might have jumped in to get the number 1 pick, the Texans have still gotten themselves a QB who's leagues ahead of Davis Mills. You might be wondering why we should even care about these metrics. Well, let me tell you that they can tell a lot about receivers' potential. Just remember how impressed the critics were when charting Collins' early season games in 2022. I know Nico has been nursing an injury this year, but that doesn't mean that you should ignore this hidden gem in your fantasy draft. After all, he's given promising performances in the 2022 season, and even with his health scares, he was hitting some great stats before getting sidelined. Now, once he's back in action in the 2023 season, he's literally projected to have a standout season. What's exciting is that he's working on improving his game.
Sure, I feel like it's a lot of things to work on my game. I feel like it's a great opportunity for everybody, to come in, get time with the quarterbacks, work on the things I feel like, that need to be worked on to improve for the season. So I feel like it's a great time for everybody to come out here and work on the things, everybody need to work on.
Mind you, he's already made some serious moves in ESPN's receivers rating during his second season. Basically, this metric takes into account all the untargeted routes. So if you take a look at his rookie year, he didn't shine on the ESPN metrics. In fact, he was way down the list, ranking 76 out of 85 qualifying receivers and 81 when it comes to open score. I mean, that's quite underwhelming, isn't it? But you know what? He bounced back big time, climbing up to 40 overall and a decent 55 in open score. Frankly speaking, the improvement in open score is a very good sign. First off, he got better in an area where he was previously struggling, and that's always a positive. Plus, open score, which looks at how open a receiver is based on player tracking data, isn't too dependent on the quarterback's performance. Now keep in mind the fact that the Texans have picked up a new quarterback. That means receivers are in for some insane target. But here's the thing, Collins might have a rookie quarterback throwing him, which isn't exactly an ideal scenario, but let's be real. He's starting his career catching passes from Dave Mills, and only Zach Wilson has worse stats in terms of EPA per play over the last couple of seasons. But yes, he might have a rookie under center, but trust me, it's still going to be the best quality of targets he's seen in his career so far. Speaking of targets, people were concerned about Nico's target share until Brandon Cooks packed his bags for Dallas. So that worry has eased up a bit. If Cooks had stayed in Houston for the 2023 season, Collins' piece of target would have been shaky. But don't get excited just yet, because even without Cooks in the mix, Collins isn't exactly a lock for a massive target share. Let me break it down for you. The The thing is that Robert Woods has cashed in on a deal with $10 million guaranteed, and the Texans might make him their top receiver. Sure, this signals some big plans from the front office, but if he performs like he did last year, you bet the coaching staff won't hesitate to change the game plan. Remember, Woods is coming off a torn ACL, and he had a career-low 1.14 yards per route run last season. He was also targeted on only 18% of his routes, down from a decent 21% in 2021. Not to mention, Woods is entering the season at the age of 31, so he's unlikely to outshine Collins, unless, of course, Nico isn't the player we're hoping he is. Besides this, while Woods and Collins will mainly line up on the outside, they actually have different roles in the NFL. The interesting thing is that Woods hasn't had an average depth of target above 9.0 since 2018, meaning he's more of an underneath target now. And when it comes to Collins, he adds that deep threat element that Woods doesn't quite bring. So for now, Collins' main competition could come from Noah Brown, who basically had a breakout season but delivered just 1.25 wide RRR. Speaking of competition, you also can't ignore John Mechie. I mean, he looks like the real deal and could give Collins a run for his money. This 2022 second rounder fits well in Bobby Slovik's Shanahan-style offense and has potential to be a yards per catch producer. But here's the catch. John is more of an underneath option, much like Woods. If he shines, he could be a more explosive version of Robert Woods. But again, Nico brings that deep threat element that Mechie doesn't have either. Clearly the competition is on, and hopefully, Collins has the tools to stay in the game. With that being said, let's have a look at his fantasy football prospects for the 2023 season. So far, Collins has been with a number of quarterbacks, including Davis Mills, Kyle Allen, and Tyrod Taylor. Not exactly the lineup that strikes fear into opposing defenses, right? And as you'd expect, the fantasy results haven't exactly been impressive. To be honest, the Texans have been stuck in the bottom half of the league when it comes to passing yards and touchdowns over the past couple of seasons. But hold on a second. There are a couple of things that might just make Nico Collins a fantasy breakout 2023. First off, as I've mentioned, Brandon Cooks is no longer in the picture, so his departure leaves a massive hole in the offense waiting to be filled. Coming to Collins, he's given us some glimpses of being a great wide receiver, despite those below-average fantasy results in his first 2 years. Last season, during his 9 healthy games, he was getting an average of 7 targets per game. But what's amazing is that he really started to shine from weeks 10 to 13 with an average of 9 targets per game, leading to 19 receptions and 2 touchdowns. Not bad, right? Now, when you take a look at the other receivers on the Texans roster, it's basically a mixed bag. Some are unproven guns like John Mechie and Tank Dell. Then there are veterans coming off somewhat lackluster seasons like Noah Brown and Robert Woods. So the reason why Nico could have a standout pick on draft day from this group is the fact that he's a top red zone option. That means he's the guy the team looks to when they're close to the end zone, which can lead to some serious fantasy points. Seriously, if you're looking for a secret weapon in your fantasy draft, Collins might just be your guy. So there you have it. That was all you need to know about the prospects of Nico Collins in the 2023 fantasy football.